Hello and welcome to our daily sketching routine. It is Monday, June the 23rd, 2025, and today's topic I'm going to call Returning to the Basics. But before we begin, welcome back if you're returning and welcome if you're new to the channel. I sketch and post every day and I use a timer to stay focused and to build a habit. I'll start a 10-minute timer. So this will be a series and I'll post a link to yesterday's video. I didn't work on it at all after the video. But yeah, today's topic is return to basics, so this will be kind of an intro and a warm-up. Not only for today, but also just for like the series for the week. So part of the inspiration comes from the fact that it's always good to return to the basics, and also because this sketch has a lot of basic shapes and forms. A lot of how I do stuff, like how I do artwork, a lot of it is from imagination. Although I use reference, but this was from imagination, so it kind of leans towards doing it that way. But yeah, just to begin with, I'll just go ahead and use this page as like a sketch page. I'm done with my sketchbook, so I'm using this as like a sketchbook. I have videos, this will go into the basics playlist, and I do have videos about this topic, but like I said, that's why it's called Return to the Basics. This will be helpful if you're wanting to learn to draw or to practice drawing. I mean, I return to this stuff like all the time, like even in the sketch right here. Part of it is like mark making. So shapes start with line. So if you put like this, like whatever pen you're using, this is a felt tip pen. So these are dots or points, like stippling in other words. So it starts with, so this video is called Returning to the Basics, so I really am just gonna like keep it at the basics. So this is like, and we'll move into like rendering and stuff like that. So these are points, and then from here you could have a line. So just, you could put a line like this, a line like this, and like this. So these are different lines with different like lengths to the line. So this is like basic geometry. But that's basically what drawing is. You can create forms, or like let's say shapes actually. So you have points, you have lines, and then you have shapes. So you connect these lines, then you can have a shape. This pen's starting to run out a little bit. So that's a shape. So you've got some lines here, and this is called mark making. So that's like the most basic of all. So I'll just connect those lines and then you have another shape. There's design principles, which is kind of beyond the scope of the basics. This is more about drawing, but like design is this, like why does that look interesting? And it's really the design of it that makes it look interesting. But yeah, you have points, lines, you have shapes, because when you connect the lines you have a shape. That's like the basics of drawing right there. Now of course there's things like I said, the composition, the design, the proportion, the perspective. There's those kinds of things, but I feel like that is actually after understanding this, because this goes with like the doodling, because that's how a lot of this came about, just from like messing around. So for example, I can start to just like doodle some stuff, like making random marks like this. You can just make marks, and like this is doodling. It's just random. It might not seem like much. However, that's actually like the joy of it. That's actually like the fun of it, is just making marks. Which, yeah, it's basically what doodling is. And the sketching is kind of doodling is a form of sketching, and sketching is a form of drawing. Just to like get into it, you can just play around like doing this kind of thing. So the next thing I'll talk about is like the forms. Well, let's just talk about shapes, because we talked about line, which led to the shape. So I'll talk about some more shapes here. So you've got, for example, like circular shapes. So let's just do circular shapes, which is a kind of line, by the way, so that you have curved lines like this with different sorts of curves. Now, as far as like design principles, the reason I did this is because like with design, which also has to do with perspective, but like just design, let's not think about perspective. Design is about like variety, like there's different things, like there's symmetry, so I'm just doing this just to add variety of, it's the same curved line, but I'm adding variety. So I've got some like a bigger curved line and then like these little ones. And just by doing that, it starts to look like clouds, for example. And then the question might be, well, why can this look like clouds or smoke or whatever? Because it can also be smoke, but it can also be clouds. And then the question might be, like, how does that work? Like, this could be like the sun. So how could there be clouds like within like this interior? And that's why it's artistic. It's because the person is like, there's reasons behind it. It could be that that's what's interesting to me, like, or yeah, like I was having fun. But that's like the human aspect, because no one would care about it other than people, because this is like nothing. It's the fact that people care about it that makes it into what we call art or whatever, because it doesn't matter to anyone else is my point. And there could be all sorts of reasons why you would want to like draw something. You've got these curved lines that turn into circles if you connect them. So you've got these circles, and then you've got over here, we could put like, I guess they're called polygonals, or like square maybe, like they have these different sides to them. So polygons, not sure. So you can give them like different sides, so they're shapes. Whatever looks interesting. So there's that. And then more like, I guess like triangular, which is kind of like sharp. So kind of like stars, but they're sharp looking. And of course you can mix them, but right now I'm just keeping it pretty simple. So these are sharp shapes. I'm just going off of what I use all the time. So curved for clouds and trees. These circle things for like the sun or the moon. These angular shapes for buildings and stuff. And then these sharp shapes are good for sometimes leaves and weapons. So I use those like probably the most. And then yeah, like the idea of like the line and like the shape. Of course you can combine things. So you can combine, I'll just use a pencil for this part. So if you combine like a circle with like the angular shape, or like the sharp plus the angular, you can add like an angular kind of shape to it and then outline it. So later on I'll go towards like the inking basically, or line work. And just by being kind of definite about it, which I mean it comes with practice, but So for curved lines, if you're wanting it to look like nicer, usually you won't be able to do that in one if you're wanting to like make it look just like it. Kind of like this. Or you could have just drawn it. So that's one way to ink something, and then you just erase. That's how you can combine shapes. In this video, I might just kind of focus on like the shapes, and then in the next one I'll kind of talk about the forms, but I just think it's kind of easy to confuse yourself and make it like more complicated, kind of like this, where I'm sort of mixing a bunch of different things, and I even added like shading and stuff. But I think that if you have something like this, because you could just color that in like with flat color and it would look interesting, in my opinion. I find stuff like that pretty interesting. That's why I like abstract art, honestly. I don't do like a ton of it, but you can see that there's elements of like abstract because it's just shapes and like composition and stuff and like design. But that'll be it for today. I want to thank you for joining me for our daily sketching routine, and if you enjoy these videos, please support the channel. I appreciate it, and until next time, keep on sketching.